Hey everybody, Shawn here from the Automation Blog and School, and today we're going to be testing out a brand new product from RTA. We're the first ones they've sent it to. It's an Allen Bradley PLC MQTT Gateway, and it's a pretty cool device. And what we'll do is we'll see what comes in the box, then we'll connect it all up and test it out here in the studio and see how it works. And we'll also talk about connecting it to both Amazon and Microsoft's cloud products as well. So probably the biggest use case for this, while it does a lot of things, would be to get data from your PLCs into the cloud. And you know what else is in the cloud? The tab store, where you can find merch like coffee cups, video collections, and cool t-shirts like these. Okay, so let's take a look at the unboxing. You can see here on the side of the box, it says it's an Allen Bradley PLC to MQTT Gateway. And the part number is 460 ETC QT-N2E-D. And so once we get the box open, inside the first thing we see is the blue side of this unit. And actually looks really nice. I like the blue. And once we get it out of the box, you'll see a couple things right away. First off, you notice there's two terminal blocks there. The one at the very bottom, the 2-pin, is for power. And then you'll notice the two ports. Now the bottom port is port 1 and the top port is port 2. But look at this. Look at the indicator lights at the top there. The top indicator light underneath power is 1 and the bottom is 2. So those are kind of reversed, the ports and the indicator lights. So keep that in mind. Now if we look at the side, we can see the label and the specifications and whatnot. And it also looks like here on the front like there's an SD slot. Now, if we go back in and look in the box here, we can see, before we get to the stuff inside, we can see there's a disk. I actually copied that disk to my hard drive, so we'll have access to those utilities. And then we'll find on the other side of the box, we have two terminal blocks. We have a power cable, which I'm not going to use. We also have a Cat 5e cable, which I will use. And then we have this little toy here, sticky toy. And we also have a manual. And you can see at the bottom of the box here, they talk about collecting all 5 of these prizes for a remote control helicopter. And then of course you can see the manual and, care and training of your gateway. And all their gateways kind of share a very similar construction and internals. So this covers all of those. Now, if you want to see some of the other coverage we've had on RTA, just go to theautomationblog.com/RTA and you'll see all our previous coverage, including when they came on to tell us about their Ethernet to ASCII gateway, and we also did their DF1 to Ethernet gateway and so on. Now here you can see the second terminal block. It looks like it has some serial connections. We're not going to use that. We're going to strictly use the 2 Ethernet ports. One will be for our PLC network. The other will be for our connection to the cloud, okay? And so we're going to emulate that all in here internally. And with that, let's go over to the bench here and take a look at how we have everything set up. Now what I really wanted to test it with was a 5580. You know, the L8s. We've covered these over at theautomationblog.com before. You know, they came out in 2015. They have the integral Ethernet port. But, you know, it's going on 7 years, and I can't find anybody in product marketing at Rockwell who can sample us one. And we just need a little one. It's just going to be for tutorials and training and whatnot. So that's out of the question for us because it's like $3,500. So instead, what we'll use is an L30 that I picked up secondhand. So I'm recycling it for our videos here. And, it's actually a great option if you're just doing some testing on a bench or, doing some training. If it's not in a mission critical operation, then, recycling items is good. We've always done it. I know a lot of users, if they decommission a system, they will go ahead and take all the equipment out, put them in the storeroom with spares. So that's always a good option for that. If you're looking for items, you can also support us at the same time by using our affiliate links for eBay and Amazon, which I'll include in the description. But we're going to use this L30. I was going to use the 5380, but that experience kit that we picked up for $1,500 back for episode 1 of the automation show, that's been obsoleted. So there's really no way you can get your hands on one of those inexpensively these days. So with that said, we'll use the recycled L30 for this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to have 2 networks, right? One for just the PLCs, and then we'll have one for the cloud or for our server that we're going to use in this example. And so what we're going to do here is we're just going to install this guy on the DIN rail. Let's see if I can get that on there. Okay, seems to go on and off pretty easily. And I've already wired the terminal block here to this beautiful side-top power supply. The guys over at Siemens sent in. Thank you guys. Okay, so that'll be that. And now for my server, I'm going to use port 2. That's the top port. Okay, and I'm using, these are just some industrial Ethernet cables that Siemens sent over. And what I'm going to do is, to ensure this is a totally separate network, I'm actually using a USB to Ethernet converter. So this is a separate network. And I've actually unplugged the switch that my PLCs go into. I've unplugged it from the wider network. So in any case, I'll plug that in a moment into the VMware PC. Then I'll take the orange cable that came with the system and I'll plug it into port 1. I'll plug that into my L30. I also have another wire coming out of the L30 to the L306 ERM. So that's kind of my mini network there. And at this point, what I'll do is I'll plug this into the virtual machine. I'll power everything on and I'll be right back. Okay, I got everything wired up and powered on, so we're ready to go. Let's go over to the computer here. And here you can see the program I have in the L30. I'll put a link to the file bundle for season 2 here in the description. But in any case, you can see this is just a program with a bunch of timers and counters in it. And we'll use these counter accumulates as the values. We'll grab out of the PLC using the gateway and then send to the broker via MQTT. Now, before we leave, let's go to Who Active here, and we'll be able to see the addresses of each of our PLCs. We can see the L30 is 173 and the L306 is 174. Okay, so let's close that and we'll go over to our other computer, our other virtual machine that's on the other network that is connected to the second Ethernet port on the gateway. And here what I want to do is open up the data sheet for the gateway here. And you can see it says, hey, this is an Allen Bradley PLC to MQTT Gateway. And we can connect up to 5 Allen Bradley PLCs to MQTT. And they go on to talk about, which PLCs are supported, control logics, compact logics, flex logics, micrologics, SLC 500, and PLC 5Es. You can see there's a lot of other great information in here. But what is MQTT, right? We really haven't discussed that yet. So let's do that now. I'm going to go over to a new tab here, and we'll go to mqtt.org. And there's a lot of great information on this website. There really is. But I really just want to focus on the basics of what MQTT is. And for that, we'll use this image down here at the bottom of the screen. And you can see here on the left, I have an MQTT client. And over here on the right, I have MQTT clients. And this one on the left here, you can see that it is a temperature sensor. And it's publishing a topic called temperature. And it's also publishing a temperature value of 24 degrees C. And on the right, we can see over here that this client is a subscriber. And it subscribed to a topic called temperature. And it is getting the value of 24 degrees C. Now, these two clients don't talk to each other directly. They go through a broker. So when this client publishes its temperature topic, it publishes it to the broker. And then when this client wants to subscribe to that data, it subscribes to that topic from the broker. So that's why you can see sometimes people will call the broker a server, because it really takes care of getting the data that's being published to the clients that are subscribing to it. Now, one thing this doesn't show you is that clients can both be a publisher and a subscriber. They can both produce data and consume data. And this gateway from RTA supports doing that. So you can not only read data out of the PLC and publish it to the MQTT broker, you could also subscribe to some data from the MQTT broker and send it back down to and write it to the PLC. In one instance, I heard of a customer doing that by, they wanted to know how high the river was to know if they could draw water from it. And so what they would do is they would get the river level from a publicly available data source. and then send that to the PLC. So that's one example of what you could do with data from the real world inside your PLC. Now, there's all kinds of companies that make MQTT brokers, right? And even Amazon and Microsoft's cloud services offer MQTT brokers. But the problem with those is they require a credit card, and even though they say they won't charge you if you don't use it too much or don't use it for a long time, you know, setting up an account with either of those big companies just to run a test just seems like a little overboard to me. And if you do need to do that, then inside the manual for the gateway, you'll find all kinds of information on how to set it up to connect to those big services. But today, I really want to just focus on how you could test everything on your bench without having to subscribe and give somebody a credit card, right? And so what we're going to do is we're going to use a free broker that we can download and install right on our Windows 10 PC. And to find what's available, we're going to go to Software here. We're going to go to Servers Brokers. And the one we're going to use is probably the most popular one out there. It's called Mosquito. There it is. Okay. And then we would go to the download page. And I want the Windows x64 version because I'm running 64-bit Windows 10. And so that's what we would download. And I've already downloaded it. I'll save it again, but I've already downloaded it. Now, that's the broker. We also would like a client too, right? We want to be able to see the data that we're pulling out of the PLC somewhere in a client, right? And a few months ago, the guys over at P&F showed me this really cool client called the MQTT Explorer. So let's go ahead and grab that guy as well while we're here. So I'll just search on MQTT Explorer. Okay. And we'll download this as well. I'm going to download the installer, and I'll save that as well. Okay, so let's go ahead and minimize our browser. And now let's go ahead and get our Mosquito broker installed. There's really no place for the gateway to send the data unless we have the broker set up. So we'll go ahead and do that here. And just double click it to install it. Yes, I want to install it. And a couple of things I'm going to change here in the install routine. First of all, I'm not going to install it as a service because I use this VMware image for other things. And I don't need Mosquito running all the time, every time I boot up the image. So I'm going to uncheck that. And because I'll be running the software manually whenever I need to use it, I'm not going to put it into Program Files Mosquito. That's a lot of typing every time I have to get in there and issue a command. So I'm just going to install it in C:\MOS. Just to make things simpler. And so it'll just take a moment to install and finish, and that's great. And now while I'm here, I'll go ahead and install the Explorer as well. So we'll have a client that can subscribe to our data. Okay, so we're not going to use you yet. Okay, so let's go ahead and open up a command prompt. And I'm going to open this as an administrator. Okay, let me resize it here. Okay, and I know the, let's see if we can make the text bigger so you guys can see it at home. All right, so I installed Mosquito in the C:\MOS. So let's go over there. We'll do a directory. Let's see what we have for EXEs in there. And you'll see the one we're going to want to run is Mosquito. That's pretty simple, right? And I'm going to do the -V. That's the verbose mode. That means it's going to give us a lot of data on what's happening. Okay, so here we are. Now, there's one thing here. It's using the default config. But look at this. It says starting in local mode only. Connections will only be possible from clients running on this machine. Well, I got a client that's actually on the network. That's not going to be good. So I got to change that. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to open another command prompt here. And I'm going to do a netstat-a. And let's see what that comes up with. Now, if you've never used MQTT before, the default port that it uses is 1883. And we can see here, indeed, it's set up for just our local machine here, 127.0.0.1. That's our local machine. It's not set up for all of TCP. It's just set up for our local machine here. So we're going to have to change that, and I'll show you how to do it. It's very easy. So let me minimize this guy. We're going to close this window, which will stop the Mosquito server from running. And we're going to go into C drive, and we're going to go into MOS, and we're going to look for the configuration file here. You see it? Mosquito config. And I'm going to open it with Notepad. Okay, let me see if I can zoom in on that. I'm going to do two things in here. The first thing I want to do is allow anonymous. And I'll tell you, the reason I'm doing that is because to keep this video at a reasonable length, I don't want to have to set up a bunch of usernames and passwords. So I'm going to allow anonymous. And then the second thing I got to do is I got to come down here to listeners. There we go. And here, what I got to do is I got to set that up. I want 1883 to work for 0000 or all the TCP/IP addresses. Okay? So those are the two things I have to do. And that way I won't have to worry about addresses, usernames, passwords, and it will work not just in a local mode, but globally. So let's go ahead and save that. Excellent. All right. So let me open up another command prompt, and I'll run it as administrator. Okay, we'll zoom in. I'll adjust the size here a little bit. We'll change over to MOS. Excellent. And now I'm going to run Mosquito again. verbose, but I have to tell it to use that configuration file. -C, and then it was mosquito.conf. Okay, that way it will use those settings I just changed in the file. Okay, you can see here I get a security alert. Do you want to let this guy access public and private networks? Yeah, I need it to be able to talk to the network for sure. Excellent. So it's running. Well, you know what? Let's go check netstat here. Let's run that again to see if, in fact, 1883 is, yes, it is. Now you can see it. This time it is now open for all the TCP/IP addresses, not just our local 127.0.0.1. Okay, so that's good. So we can close that guy. Now, we've got our broker working, right? We might as well try connecting to it with our client here. So let me come in here. We'll create a new connection. I'm just going to call it PC. I'm not going to use any certificates because just to keep things simple. And the address will be the address of this computer since that's what it's running on. Port 1883. I don't have to use username and password, so let me save that. Okay, and then let's connect to the broker with our client. Okay. So we saw some things happen here, and we can see we're reading in some system information from the broker, and the broker's telling us what it's doing. It's sending it to our client, which is MQTT Explorer. All right, so I'm going to disconnect. There's really nothing to see yet. And now we're ready to go and set up the gateway. The thing with the gateway is RTA, wisely, makes them come as DHCP. Both Ethernet ports are set up for DHCP. Now, on the computer's network, I do have a DHCP server. So I can use this utility that comes onto disk. Let's go in here, disk, gateway tools. It's called IP setup. This is off the CD-ROM that comes in the box. So I'm going to run that, and you're going to see that my DHCP server has given it an address of .27. Okay. Now, if you didn't have a DHCP server, you could use the free DHCP tool that Rockwell ships with RS links, right? But the other thing is, if it doesn't get an address after a certain amount of time, it'll go to the automatic configuration address of, 169.254.random number, which is the same thing your computer would go to if it couldn't find a DHCP server. So with that said, though, because it has an address, let's go ahead and launch the web page to connect to it so we can configure it. And here we can see the configuration. You can see I already gave it a name, the automation show. And the first thing we're going to do here is we're going to go to configuration mode. Okay, it's running right now, so we need to go to configuration mode, take it out of run. That means it will stop sending data. It's not sending any data right now, but if it was sending data, you would have a break in the data flow as you reconfigure the module. Okay, and so I'm going to go to network configuration. And let's see here. We have port 1, and I don't want that to be DHCP. I want that to be static. And port 1 is the port I'm using for the PLC network. So I'm going to give it an address of 192.168.1.148 and 255.255.255.0. I don't need default gateway or DNS because I'm not going to the internet with that. Okay, now let's do port 2. Static again. For this port, I'm going to make it 192.168.1.98 and 255.255.0. Now, if your MQTT broker was on the internet, right, and you were using Ethernet port 2 to connect to it, you would absolutely have to have your default gateway and DNS, okay? So I know most of you already know that, but I wanted to throw that out there for those who may not be experienced connecting their devices through multiple routers and whatnot. Okay, so with that done, the next thing we're going to do is set up our PLC connection, okay? And this is really, we want to get data out of our PLC and up to MQTT, up to the cloud, right? So this is where our real work is. And we're using port 1. And we're going to say here, we're not going to change any of that. We're going to add a PLC, and you can have up to 5, right? So we saw that in the data sheet. So I'm going to add a generic PLC, and there it is, okay? And I'm going to go ahead and enable it. I'm going to give it a name. I'm going to call it L30 because we're going to be reading in from the L30. And as we saw earlier in RS links, it was 173. Controller slot 0. I'll update the type there. That's compact logics. You can see these are the ones we saw in the data sheet that you could use. Okay, notice the control logics Rev 32 Plus is down here separately. That's interesting. I'm going to leave this as class 3 explicit. I'm not going to use an optimized trigger tag. And you can see the read lines here. Okay, you can also see the write. Okay, we're not doing any writing. I'm going to read from the PLC. So that's really what my interest is. So let's make sure none of this got changed when the back and forth I did. And so I will save, let's save what we got. Okay. So we'll come back in here and put our tags in later. But so we have that done. So now we'll go over to the MQTT client side. This is what talks to the broker. And let's see what I'm going to do. I'm going to add a generic. You can see there's AWS and Azure here. We talked about those. Again, if you want to test those, you will have to use a credit card and sign up for those services. They say they won't charge you anything initially anyways, but something to consider. You will also have to have a connection to the internet, of course. So we're just going to use a generic MQTT here for our test. And here it is. I'm just going to call it PC because it's running on my PC. We'll enable it. We'll use port 2. The broker address, well, my device address was 98 and my PC address is 99. So 192.168.1.99. We'll keep the standard port of 1883. I'm not going to play with the keep alive, but I am going to give myself a client ID of RTA. I want, when this is published, it'll be, hey, the client name is RTA. And here's where we didn't have to set up the users and passwords because we're allowing anonymous. We're not going to subscribe to any topics. We're not going to read any data back into the PLC or read any data from the broker to write to the PLC. But we are going to publish topics. And I don't know. I think we're only going to have, well, let's do 5. We'll say we'll have 5 topics. Okay, we'll generate them. Okay. And so here we can see subscribe. We're not doing subscribe. Here we can see published. Okay. So look at these topics, right? You can see I got 5 topics here. And well, we're using 32 bits, right? We're going to do the counters, the accumulates for the counters. So they're all 32-bit counters and the compact logics and control logics. So we'll do int 32. And we're going to give them a name. I don't know. I'll just call it counter 0. We'll do 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay. That all looks good. We'll save that. So that's what will go out to the broker. Okay. So those are published topics. Okay. So I think I'm good there. So let's go back to the PLC. Oh, I don't want this. This was created automatically because of this setting here. Let's go ahead and change this to manual. Okay. Yes, yes, yes. It has to delete everything. Okay, so I'm going to delete this guy. Okay. Now, I want to make 5 read scan lines. And this is easy to get wrong because it sounds like the PLC is reading, but this is actually from the perspective of the gateway itself. And you can see right here, Allen Bradley 2 gateway. So we definitely want to do read. So let's go ahead and generate those. Okay, we can see them down here. And now I got to put the tags in. So if I go back to Studio, you can see my counters are counters bracket 0 bracket, counters bracket 1 bracket, and I want the accumulate of those counters. So let me come over here and we'll type in counters 0 and then .acc and go ahead and copy and paste that. And we'll do 1, 2, 3, and 4. And because it's a compact logics, these are going to be double integers. Okay, save parameters. Excellent. All right, so we got our A-B PLC tags in and the address of the controller. We did the MQTT setup to the broker. Okay, so now let's do some data mapping. And I'm going to go ahead and map 5. Okay, and what do we want on this side? Counter 0 to counter 0. Excellent. Counter 1 to counter 1. Okay. Counter 2 to counter 2. Counter 3 to counter 3. And counter 4 to counter 4. Excellent. And I'll make sure they're all enabled. Okay, and let me save these parameters. Excellent. Now let's do the display data here. So we have these 5 counters going to these 5 items that will be sent over to the broker. Okay, so at this point, if everything's set up correctly, we will go ahead and restart the unit to put it back in the run mode, and we should start seeing data coming into our broker. Now this isn't going to auto connect because the address was 27, but now it's 98. So let me put that in there. And while we're waiting on that, let's bring up the broker again. Okay, and look at it, it's receiving data from our gateway. And here we can see status, connected and running, connected and running. If we go to diagnostics, we can see here, status connected, how many times it's done read requests from the PLC. And here we can see how many published messages it's done to the MQTT broker. Excellent. So now that the gateway is set up and pulling data out of the compact logics and sending it to our broker, what we can do here is connect back up with our client. Okay, we'll go here, PC, we'll do connect. And now here you can see a lot more things happening here on the broker side. And here on the RTA, right, you can see we have 5 topics, right? Those are the 5 items we mapped. And we can explore them. And you can see the values here, right? And if I choose counter 0, I can do some other things over here. Let me make this a little bit bigger. I can actually look at the history, and you'll see that counter keeps going up and up and up. Now, I reset the counts when I go to program the run. I use the first pass bit, first scan bit to do that. So let's see if that works. I'm going to go to program. I'm going to go back to run. Yep, see it went all the way back down to 0. Okay, and you can see all these values started counting again from scratch. Okay, we can also see that over here. So that is how you set up the brand new RTA MQTT Gateway that can read data from your PLC or write data to your PLC, up to 5 Allen Bradley PLCs with this model, and send it to and from an MQTT broker like Mosquito that we're running on our computer here, or it could be AWS, it could be Azure, or it could be, some other, generic MQTT broker in the cloud. But with that, that's the end of this episode. I know that was a lot to do in one episode, but I'm hoping that you found this helpful, and I'm hoping now you'll understand maybe MQTT a little bit better and how it all works, as well as this excellent gateway, which RTA sent us to test out and try. And with that, I want to thank you for watching. If you found this episode helpful, please give us a like and a sub. And if you're looking for any of the information I talked about, you'll find all the links down in the description. And don't forget, you can follow me and join our community over at automation.locals.com. With that said, I want to wish you all a very happy, safe, and healthy week. And until next time, my friends, peace.